020 Wyoming Lane. Your presenter is Tamara.
Okay, welcome back from break. Let's read item 8A and 8A, B, and C into the record, please.
Item 8A, ANEX-24-0016, Miller Downs at Wyoming Lane, Addition Number 1, annexation consisting of 21.37 acres located at 720 Wyoming Lane. Item 8B, LUPL-25-0006, establishment of the Miller Downs land use plan for proposed residential use consisting of 21.37 acres located at 7020 Wyoming Lane. Item 8C, ZONE-25-0015, establishment of R-Flex medium with Streamside and an airport overlay zone district in association with the Miller Downs at Wyoming Lane Addition Number 1, annexation consisting of 21.37 acres located at 7020 Wyoming Lane. Your presenter is Tamara Baxter.
Thank you, Tamara.
Good morning. For the record, Tamara Baxter, Planning Supervisor. So before you is the Miller Downs at Wyoming Lane Addition Number 1 annexation, along with the land use plan and zone establishment. Here's a little bit of quick facts on the property. So as you can see on the site plan, the property is located at 7020 Wyoming Lane. It is currently in the county. It is part of an enclave. The current zoning on the property is RR5 with a commercial airport overlay. What is being proposed with the zone establishment is an R-Flex medium zone district. The property itself is 21 acres. And the proposed use will be single-family detached and attached residential uses. As you can see on the land use plan, the red circles are proposed access points. The primary access for this development will be off the west through the Quailbrush Creek subdivision. The access point indicated on the east side of the property will be for the existing single-family residence that will be retained on the property. And ultimately, when this is brought into the city, they will be subdividing that off into a roughly 2.5 acre piece of property. To the south of the property, that's running to the south of the property, is Sand Creek. So there is some streamside overlay and some limitations along that area. For the zone establishment, I mentioned that they are proposing an R-Flex medium zone district. I pulled out an excerpt from the city code, or from the UDC, and for R-Flex medium, it does accommodate a mix of detached and attached low and medium density housing, up to a maximum residential density of 5 to 16 dwelling units per acre. What's being proposed density-wise is 5.2 dwelling units per acre, which equates to roughly about 110 homes in this development. During the review of this project, there is a 30-foot remnant piece of property along Wyoming Lane. This strip of land needs to be, the ownership of this strip of land needs to be resolved. And that will need to be addressed at the time of final plat. And I have crafted a general note or conditions of approval, which are not represented in the staff report, but I'll show that at the end with the motions. With regard to the timeline of review, a petition for annexation was accepted by City Council on May 13th of this year. The initial application post-annexation petition was submitted May 20th of this year. We did go before council for a checkpoint work session on June 23rd. The application has gone through 3 reviews. Comments were just pushed out. Some remaining comments, which are also reflected with the motions. And the item was ready for being heard before you on July 21st. With regards to stakeholder involvement, we did do posters and postcards with the initial submittal. There was a neighborhood meeting on July 31st, and that was also notification was done for that, and then for Planning Commission. Notification was sent out 1,000 feet from the property boundary. That equated to 327 postcards. Since this presentation was put together, I've received about 25 to 30 comments, both in favor and opposition. You did receive some in your packet, and I think additional comments were emailed out yesterday. Concerns with the individuals that are opposing the project are related to traffic, access, safety, inadequate infrastructure, evacuation, density, wildlife habitat, impact to wildlife habitat, and increased noise. With regards to agencies review, we do have some city agencies here to address comments. Traffic engineering did review the traffic impacts study. They are here to answer any questions that you may have. CSU is also here. They do have a presentation if you'd like to hear their presentation. Stormwater requested that there be a modification to general note number 10 on the land use plan that is included as part of one of the motions. And then city engineering, there was a comment in regards to CGS needing to provide comments. They did, city engineering did receive comments prior to this meeting, so that's been resolved, and CGS did agree with the findings of that report. County planning and engineering did provide comments on this application. They did not have any concerns with the annexation because it's not impacting their network, transportation network, and it will be accessing city-owned and maintained roadways. And they do not want to see construction vehicle and traffic on Wyoming Lane. I think that's something that the applicant had originally proposed, so that is still being discussed with the annexation agreement. With regards to Plan COS, this fits with Chapter 8 of Plan COS with regards to annexation of enclaves. Staff did evaluate the proposed annexation to determine its eligibility in accordance to state law to be acceptable. These are the criteria for reviewing an annexation. After evaluating, staff recognizes that the proposed Miller Downs at Wyoming Lane number 1 annexation meets the eligibility requirements set forth in Colorado state statutes. These are the criteria for a rezone or a zone establishment. After evaluating the request for the zone map amendment or zone establishment, the application meets the criteria. Here are the criteria for a land use plan for approval, and after evaluating the Miller Downs land use plan, the application does meet the review criteria. Sorry, I'm on pause. There you go. Motions for approval. These are the motions for approval for annexation. I think we went a little bit too fast. Sorry. We did modify the motion to approve the annexation. That's been included with the land use plan, so I'll move forward to that one. It was removing, identifying the 30-foot strip of land prior to city council. Let me get to that. These are the motions for the zone change. And then these are the proposed motions. Conditions of approval and technical modifications have been included that address the revision of general note number 10 at the request of stormwater. Also, we are requesting that the applicant have a third-party specialist to determine the wetland areas in the north west corner of the property. They're proposing access through that, and I know the applicant will be addressing that. Also, the labeling of that 30-foot strip of land along Wyoming Lane needs to be consistent with the annexation plat. And this last one is a general note that needs to be added on the cover sheet of the land use plan. It will be a condition of approval, and it will be addressed in the annexation agreement. And that is all I have. Happy to answer any questions. And I know the applicant has a presentation. And like I said, we do have city agencies here, so if you have any specific questions for fire, police, and traffic, they are here to answer any questions.
Thanks, Tamara. Are we going to hear from CSU next then?
Yeah, would you like to hear from them?
Often, I think that's what we had been doing for annexation.
Before she leaves, I've got a question.
What?
Marty.
If you can go back to that last slide, actually. The 30-foot strip of land, and I know I was looking at the comment on the ingress egress right away along Wyoming. Nope, back to where you were.
Oh, do you want the motion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that stopping the exiting onto Wyoming in case of an emergency?
There will be no emergency access off of Wyoming Lane for the bulk of the project. So currently the existing home takes access off of Wyoming Lane, and that will be maintained. We need to identify, the city would like that 30 strip, the ownership determined, and then brought into the city if it's owned by the same ownership.
So
And that would probably come in as another addition. So it'll be like addition number 2.
got it. But I go back to that ingress egress on Wyoming.
The image.
Is that,
Oops, sorry.
I want to understand that correctly.
Right here. This one, this image?
No, the one with the roads on it, the one before.
This one?
Right. We don't show access from the neighborhood to Wyoming. Is there access from the neighborhood to Wyoming?
To the proposed development?
Yes.
There is not. So primary access for the roughly 110 lots will be from the west through
from the
Quail Brush
adjacent
subdivision.
neighborhood. Yeah.
And I'm sorry, this isn't very detailed. I know there's a land use plan in your packet, but the access point on the east side is just going to be solely for the existing resident.
Okay. I'm just trying to, if there was an opportunity for an emergency egress into Wyoming, it would kind of make sense.
So currently, and I can, Steve Smith probably could talk to that, but currently those roads are private and are not maintained, are county roads. My understanding from county engineering is they are not equipped to handle large vehicles at this time. In that whole Wyoming Lane, California Drive, that whole area, they're dirt.
Yeah,
privately
understand
owned,
that.
yeah.
I know the area.
Yeah. So
So
there's
is
no
that
proposed
actually-
access, no emergency access proposed for the bulk of that development off of Wyoming Lane.
Right. Where I'm going is, if you said they're private, is that true? That's a private road, not a county road.
They're privately owned county roads. They're in the county,
Okay.
but they're privately owned.
Privately owned, not county owned.
Correct.
Okay. That makes more sense.
Yeah, the
Thank
county
you.
doesn't go in and maintain them or anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tamara.
Okay.
Chair Slattery, Planning Commissioners, my name is Brian English, Development Projects Manager with Colorado Springs Utilities. here to provide a utilities overview, specifically the conditions and requirements per city code specific to utilities that are within the Planning Commission's purview. We will start with quick vicinity map just to reorient ourselves, located southeast of Black Forest Road in East Woodman. The first city code item we'll cover is also known as the Water Extension Ordinance, or 12.4.305. This does require city council approval to extend water services to any properties located outside the city limits, including proposed annexations. Any approval must include a substantiated and written record demonstrating one of the following: that either city's available water supply is sufficient to meet 128% of existing water usage plus the projected water demand; a unique and extraordinary event that serves a critical interest to the city; the area is an enclave, owned or leased by the city, or would have a de minimis impact on the city's water supply. A quick overview of our current water supply and usage. Our reliably met demand, or the amount of water that we can currently deliver to the existing city limits and utilities water customers, is 95,000 acre feet a year. That's known as our reliably met demand. Our current existing usage, which is a 5-year weather normalized rolling average for the period of 2019 through 2023, is 70,325 acre feet a year. When we apply the 128% buffer required by city code, the minimum water supply requirement is just a little over 90,000 acre feet a year. So we have just under 5,000 acre feet a year to use when considering extensions outside the city. For de minimis, we use 1% of our minimum water supply requirement. So that would be, our average, available water resource, that would be 50 acre feet a year is our de minimis impact. Applying this to the scenario here, it does meet the enclave exception per city code. We have noted the projected water demand based on the land use proposed as 38 acre feet a year, so it would also meet the de minimis impact to the existing water supply. For informational purposes, all petitioned annexations, that means active, including Miller Downs, the aggregate projected water demand for those is 160 acre feet a year. Since the water extension ordinance was approved in 2023, there have been 19 approved annexations with a total projected aggregate water demand of 1,626 acre feet a year. That's important to note. Through our integrated water resource plan, we recognize that to ensure water service availability to the city through build out in the 50-year planning horizon, we have to develop an additional 34,000 acre feet of water. So for every annexation, that does increase the water supply that needs to be developed to meet the city's needs in the future. Requirements of annexation. The owner is required to deed all groundwater rights pertinent to the property to the city, as well as any other water rights that have been historically used or benefited the property. Based on the information provided by the applicant, there is an existing well, a residential well that serves an existing single-family residence. It's our understanding that they intend to keep the existing single-family residence that would be annexed as part of the scope of the application. City code does allow for continued use of wells, provided it serves the property in the same manner as connecting to Springs Utilities distribution system would provide. The applicant is also asked to continue using the existing septic system. City code typically requires that a property, if it's within 400 feet of an existing collection line, is required to extend and collect. However, our current policy inside the city, where we do have a number of existing properties that are on septic, we don't actively identify those and require them to connect. Rather, as long as the septic system is serviceable, they can continue to use that until such time that they have to apply for a permit to repair, replace, or modify the septic system through El Paso County Health, at which time, if they are within 400 feet per city code, they would be required to extend and connect at that time rather than repairing their system or expanding their system. Rights of way and easements. The owner is responsible for acquiring or dedicating all land or easements necessary for public utility infrastructure and facilities. We do have an instance of service area overlap. The property is presently located in Mountain View Electric Association service territory. Under Colorado revised statutes, they are entitled to just compensation for the service territory invasion if it's ultimately incorporated into Springs Utilities service territory. That just compensation costs would be the responsibility of the owner or developer. And as far as natural gas goes, the property is presently located within Springs Utilities natural gas service territory, and we would serve the property without respect to annexation or incorporation. The next exhibit, what's going on here? The next exhibit does show the extent of our existing electric service territory, MVEA service territory, and the red line represents the boundary, and that happens to overlap with the existing city limits. Conditions for annexation, the following exhibits and slides are provided to address these items: service capacity, that we currently have for the foreseeable future sufficient capacity across all 4 utility service lines, water, wastewater, natural gas, and electric, to meet the present needs and future needs of our customers for the foreseeable future. That proposed and existing utility facilities are sufficient for the foreseeable future. That utility extensions can be designed and constructed now or at some point in the future to successfully serve the property, and that whether utility revenues are expected to be sufficient to offset the cost of any capital improvements or projects required by utilities to serve the property. From a water infrastructure standpoint, being in an enclave, as you can see, especially on the west side, it's immediately adjacent to existing water distribution mains. At the owner developer's expense, they would be required to design and construct distribution mains and facilities within the property to provide adequate redundancy for both domestic and fire protection. From a wastewater perspective, very similarly situated, we do have existing collection lines located in the subdivision to the west, and based on initial review, that shows the proposed tie-in point and the collection line configuration within the development. Again, that's completely an owner-developer expense. From a gas perspective, we're seeing a theme here, being in an enclave, that the existing subdivision and its adjacency does provide those existing distribution mains on the doorstep, allowing extension into the property. Those would be designed and constructed by utilities at the owner-developer's expense. And electric and fiber infrastructure, I just want to clarify that the fiber is part of Colorado Springs Utilities fiber network. We do want to provide that connectivity throughout our 4 service utility services. It does aid in monitoring the condition, the operational status of transformers, other equipment. It links to meters and can provide real-time information that helps us provide the best service that we can to our customers. From an electric perspective, we are looking at about a mile's worth of off-site 200 amp 12.5 kV feeders. We do show into the northeast of the property where that would tie in, and then to the west of the existing subdivision, and then your typical 100 amp feeders, likely joint trenched with natural gas within the subdivision. From a Springs Utilities capital cost perspective, this covers the items that utilities are responsible for across all 4 services, including meters, electric generation, water and wastewater treatment capacity, vehicles, and fiber infrastructure. On the low end, we estimate our cost to be $2.3 million, adding a 50% contingency. On the high end, we're looking at about $3.5 million. It is important to note that with the City Council approving our 5-year capital budget and rate plan, any approved annexations are not accounted for the period of 2025 through 29 in our budget. So if this is ultimately approved, we would have to work with our Planning and Finance Division to identify appropriate methods of funding this capital infrastructure if developed during this time frame. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that Planning Commission has.
Do we have CSU questions already? Okay, Mr. Casey.
Commissioner Casey, just a quick question on the fiber. You're just doing the conduit part of it. another provider would then run the.
Yeah, well, we actually have our own fiber that we run for our network, but we have the agreement with King to run their own fiber. And certainly in the fiber industry, the telecom industry, it's not uncommon to lease dark fiber to other providers as a revenue source if we have available capacity.
So you'd run two sets of fiber, or they would?
Yeah, we have separate for us and them.
Okay, thanks.
Marty.
The 1,600 acre feet for the annexed locations in the last couple of years, does that include the rail annexation we did down by?
It does. Yeah,
Okay.
that's a large percentage of it. I know we had a conversation when that was presented because the depending on the use, you could see a broad range of low end or high end water demands or consumptions based on the information that the applicant had applied at the time and what we presented to Planning Commission. We estimated the projected water demand to be 1,281 acre feet a year. So it's about 75% of what's been approved since the extension ordinance came into effect in 23.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. English. I think we'll stay on deck. I imagine we'll have some questions for you as it comes up.
I'll be around. Thank you.
Thank you. And then is the applicant here and prepared to make a presentation?
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Noel Raymer for the record. I'm a civil engineer with Kimley Horn & Associates, here representing the applicant. Joined here with the rest of the design team. We've got planning, traffic, legal counsel. So if there's questions along the way, please feel free to ask them. I'll pull in partners as needed. Tomorrow, thank you for the presentation. I think a lot of ours will have some overlap, but we'll try to tie in how we've addressed stakeholder input over the last 10 months. We've worked really diligently with the city staff, county engineering, neighbors, really a lot of stakeholders to make changes to this development and make sure it's a harmonious and cohesive project that fits in with where we're proposing it. And is a benefit to all. So that go. So on the map here, you can see the proposed project location. You've seen something like this several times. Here, one thing we want to point out is the adjacent zoning is PDZ, but more importantly, the adjacent densities are in the 5.1 to 5.2 dwelling units per acre density range, which directly aligns with the density that we're proposing on site. On top of that, as a few folks have mentioned, the property is located within an enclave on the south side of that enclave. Working through that presents its own challenges with access and planning for future development. And so we've taken our time over the last 6 months and tried to make sure all of our T's are crossed and our I's are dotted, and have as a part of that, we've reduced some of our density or the proposed density on site to allow for a better traffic congestion, less traffic congestion, and better cohesion with surrounding developments that I'll get into in future slides. So here's the slide again, just illustrating the contiguous percentage as required for an annexation. All right. And then what you can see here is the list of project goals, really the themes we've tried to follow through this development and what's driven us with each decision over the past 8 to 10 months. One thing I want to note is that these goals have really driven every decision we've made. And what I'll say about this development team is that they really have shown a true commitment and genuine care for the neighbors' thoughts and opinions about the project and the direction they wanted to see it go. And we've made a lot of changes based on that. So one big goal that we've had is maintenance and preservation of the natural beauty of the site. The Sand Creek corridor traverses the site along the south side, and then we have a large teardrop-shaped wetland on the north side of the site. We've tried to keep that as much as possible. We have required creek improvements, and we've tried to implement engineering solutions that maintain the vegetation and the habitat created by those wetlands. And then another big piece is we've wanted to promote a sense of community and not be a drive-through development, be a drive-to and try to incorporate it into the neighborhood. We've done that with added pocket parks, open space throughout the site. We've amenitized the wetlands and added trails, benches, seating areas that'll be open to public use and really should promote a sense of community for the greater area. Cohesion with the surrounding neighborhoods. This really boils down to density and coming up with a product that seems to fit with the neighborhood, not going with anything too dense or a product type that seems out of place. And so we've worked through a lot of brainstorming sessions, through meetings with stakeholders, and we've made tangible changes to the proposed site plan, namely a reduction of over 30 units to make sure that we're in that density range that seems to fit. And then our proposed site layout will look and feel really similar to the surrounding neighborhoods, which is something we've heard consistently over the last year. Safety of residents, we'll dive into in quite a bit more detail. This one really connects to traffic, and the neighbors to the west in Quail Brush Creek subdivision have a lot of concerns about speeding, traffic congestion, kids that play in their parks, and we've tried to listen to that. And as a part of that, we identified that traffic concerns were made worse with a higher density development. And so part of the unit reduction, what that does for us is brings us within traffic criteria thresholds. And furthermore, we're working with city traffic to propose speed mitigation throughout the adjacent development to the west through speed humps, and we'll do the same on site as seen fit by city traffic. And then another piece of this is we wanted to honor the property's history. For a long time, these 20-something acres have been used for equestrian use, and as I mentioned, this development team really seems to care about that history. They named the project Miller Downs as a nod to the historical use, and I just think that's a cool thing. It's not something that I see every day with developers. So I'll pause there. Any questions before I keep going? Nothing? Okay. So I've alluded to a few of these things. I won't hammer them home for too long, but we've had multiple informal and formal meetings with neighbors. One was in December of 2024. We held a neighborhood meeting just to have an open dialogue and understand the concerns of all the stakeholders, all the neighbors. And as I mentioned, a lot of change came out of that. So the traffic reduction in unit counts, adding speed humps, were all things that came directly out of that December meeting. And then we held another formal meeting last month in July and we were excited to be able to present that we've made real changes and tried to listen to concerns to be good neighbors. So another big item that we've been hearing about is wildlife impact. We added a pollinator park along the wetlands on the north side, and then we preserved the Sand Creek corridor and a realignment of our roadway on the south side of the property was a recommendation by one of the neighbors in the December meeting. We had it squared off directly east and west with our first site layout, and we angled it to be parallel with Sand Creek and give a little bit more buffer for the wildlife habitat, and have tried to limit our disturbance to the habitat along the south side of the site there. View shed was a big piece we've heard about, and in the past, I think there have been proposed uses that would have 3 stories. We're committed to a 2-story product that's going to look and feel a lot like the neighbors, and really should limit any issues with folks' views. Speeding, mentioned that, looking to add speed humps within our development potentially, and within the Quail Brush development. And neighborhood cohesion ties to our density. Okay. Here's our site plan. This is a little bit more detailed than what a typical land use plan would require, but we've kept a lens on what this development really looks like in the future. We have one development plan submittal that's been reviewed by the city. That's not this application, but we wanted to have an understanding of how the site would lay out and make sure that we incorporated any necessary changes into the land use plan and annexation accordingly. So what you'll see here is we have all 2-story for sale homes. Detached homes surround the exterior of the property, and we have some single family attached homes through that center block. Our densities, as mentioned, are about 5.2 dwelling units per acre. And then we've got the existing Quail Brush Creek development to the west, county single family homes to the north and the east, and Sand Creek to the south with another single family development south of that. One other thing to mention here is our open spaces that are going to be publicly used. Open use to the public will be maintained long-term by a proposed metro district. And then something that's a little bit harder to see here is we do have a substantial amount of trails along the south side of the site near Sand Creek, on the north side of the site around the wetlands, and connectivity to the west for those homeowners. So our environmental impacts, really this ties to stormwater. We are proposing to, really we're a part of the program set forth by the Drainage Basin Planning Study to improve the channels as a part of this project. So we've worked closely with city staff, with SWENT, to propose an engineering solution that doesn't remove all the existing vegetation. We're going to propose the use of concrete cutoff walls that are only a foot wide, or check structures that'll maintain the vegetation through the Sand Creek corridor and the wetlands to the north. Everything we're proposing is in line with the city and the state's requirements, and we'll have a full spectrum on-site detention pond that'll have water quality treatment and will detain the 100-year storm event. So here you can see our proposed access points. We have an access on the northwest side of the site, as well as the southwest side of the site. Tamara had mentioned that this is our only access point. The only 2 access points for vehicular trips come from the west. We did explore the use of Wyoming Lane at length with county engineering, with city staff. fire, police. We explored emergency egress with a gate and a Knox box, and all of it really tied back to the fact that it was a privately owned and maintained road with private ownership shared by several different parties that was within the county. So the county was going to require that road to be upgraded to county road standards, and there really wasn't a great way to do that given the shared private ownership by several different parties. So the traffic counts here were performed in the spring while school was in session. The traffic counts identified that roughly 2/3 or 60% of the traffic travels to the south and about 40% to the north. We worked really closely with city traffic engineering on this study and made modifications to it based on concerns of the traffic developed from the site. Really, with the previous density we were proposing, we were looking at some developed traffic counts that were a little bit outside of acceptable thresholds, and so reducing the unit count, the density of the development brought us within all traffic thresholds, all traffic criteria. This is the Plan COS and El Paso County master plans. You guys have seen this a few times. As mentioned, it's within an enclave and was identified as a priority annexation area. What we're proposing is consistent with the city's annexation criteria, Plan COS, and really everything that's reflected within the El Paso County master plan. Since this is an enclave, we've worked hard to try to balance the approach of meeting all parties' goals, and feel that we've proposed a development that adheres to all the criteria set forth by these plans. A little bit of redundant information from our traffic. Jump into benefits and impacts here. So we have some benefits that aren't just financial benefits to the city that we've identified. One being adding single-family housing opportunities for a growing area of the city. One institution we've identified is the St. Francis Hospital. We feel that this would be a good fit for folks that work there. And then we're implementing new parks, open spaces, trails that'll serve new residents, existing residents to the west, or any public members that want to use it, and all of that will be maintained by a metro district. So, in hopes that we're able to keep it nice for a long time. As Brian mentioned, Colorado Springs Utilities has shown sufficient capacity for the development. We've worked closely with Brian and the rest of his team for months now to make sure that's the case. And they've been enormously helpful, and we feel confident that we're in a spot that Colorado Springs Utilities will be able to support the development. One last one here. We did have a fiscal impact analysis performed as part of this application. It shows a positive cumulative cash flow modeled over the next 10 years. We've identified a water surplus as mentioned, our CSU has, and we have applied for inclusion into the Southeastern Colorado Water Conservancy District. To summarize, we feel that this annexation meets eligibility requirements set forth by city, county, and really all applicable review agencies. Really appreciate you guys' time hearing us here today, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mr. Raymer. Any questions for the applicant at this time? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Do we want to hear from fire, police, traffic before opening to public comment? Mr. Frisbee's in the audience. Could you please come up to the podium? Marty, you want to go first on him or Commissioner Hensler? Okay.
Sure. How you doing, Mr. Frisbee? There was a lot of public comment on traffic. That's the reason I'm bringing it up. If you can just kind of walk through how you guys reviewed the documents and how you see this affecting the surrounding area.
Okay, thank you for the question, Mr. Rookin. Todd Frisbee, City Traffic Engineering, Public Works Department. Yes, the traffic study was submitted and reviewed by Traffic Engineering. Our primary focus, as you know, infill projects are they are challenging, and so especially when your access is going through an existing neighborhood. So in those situations, what we're really looking at. Because these are accessing what I would call, in our classification, sort of local streets. So everything in the Quail Brush area is a local street. And our criteria for a local street is that we like the local streets to have no more than 1,500 vehicles per day on a street. So that's, and a local street is some, in our current code is defined as homes that front. They have driveways. So that was our primary review criteria in looking at this. It's like, what is the impact to adjacent, what is the impact to Quail Street neighborhoods? And so we used the data, we used existing count data, some other, what we call streetlight data to kind of get a sense of what's on those roads today. And then you just do, the project will generate a certain number of trips and you assign those trips per what was discussed. And from that analysis, we found that on the most impacted streets that from this development, that the expected volumes are less than that 1,500 threshold value. So from our perspective, it met our criteria in terms of daily volumes on local streets. And so that's why we recommended, approved the traffic study. The other thing that we did talk about with the and was mentioned by the applicant is the possibility of traffic calming on some of the existing streets. There's different ways to do that, but some of the most effective ways are speed humps or raised crosswalks or things like that. Sounds like the applicant is willing and to consider those options, and we'd work with them through their development process to find sort of the best spacing and what's the best way to sort of try to, quote, calm traffic in the existing neighborhood. So that was really how we looked at it from our perspective in terms of analysis. The overall, if you look at the existing intersections around, also look at levels of service and turn movements and stuff like that, the overall project doesn't generate a ton of traffic to really impact operations at existing intersections. So we really, like I said, really focused on what was the impact on existing streets for the residents of the Quail Brush area. So does that help? That's kind of our approach.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
Sure.
I like to do this just to inform the public and understand that you guys do take a serious look at this. So
Yes,
thank you.
Yes, we did. Any other questions?
Commissioner Casey, I have a quick question. So there was a public comment referenced where the two roads are going to be extended. They're extending on between houses. And there was a comment about whether it was wide enough to accommodate sidewalks between the walking through that area or not. Can you speak to that at all?
By our code, right, those roads would be, if they're not upgraded, they would be upgraded to city standards. It would include sidewalks. It would include sidewalks on those you're talking about the little stubs that come out?
No, right now there's gaps between houses and there's just a rock area that's there. And so they would have to extend the road.
Oh, yeah, they have to extend it. They have to meet city standards. So the road would include sidewalks, curb and gutter, and be built to our city standard.
Thanks.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
All right.
Frisbee.
I'll be in the back.
Okay.
If you need me. Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Any other city officials we want to hear from before public comment? Okay. Is there a list of folks signed up to speak? We'll open it up first to folks who signed up to speak in favor of Miller Downs.
We have two people in support, Monica and Kirby. Monica, please, if you would come up. Oh, thank you. What is that? Kirby. Please introduce yourself, and then
Good
you would
morning.
have
My
3
name
minutes.
is Kirby Thompson. My wife and I reside at 7075 Wyoming Lane, which is contiguous to the east and directly across Wyoming Lane. We also own 7145, which is to the north of that parcel. So we have about 10 total acres there. My wife and her family have owned the parcel at 7075 and occupied the land continuously since 1978 when they purchased the land. So we are third generation owners of a business that is operated on the land called Britton Nursery, named after her family, the Britton family, which I will add has a long-standing, decades-long relationship with the current owners, the Miller family. And actually, over the years, I've desired to purchase this particular parcel several times, have entered into negotiations with Mr. Miller, and the reality that my wife and I came to is that we are not developers. We are flower farmers. And 21 acres is something that is just too big of a scope for us to try to buy and make into a motorcycle track for my sons and for them to play Frisbee and baseball. It just didn't make sense. So over the years, as you may know, not all developers are the same. And there have been other developers that have desired to purchase and develop this parcel that we were staunchly opposed to because we felt that they were not sensitive at all to the existing parcels to the east, which are, as you can see, rural residential, and they were not sympathetic to buffers and making transitions from the encroaching suburbia, if you will, that is coming and surrounding us. You've heard the word enclave multiple times. I would call it my personal Eden. I live there. We grow flowers for a living. And so it is something where we see that we're in the wake of the encroaching development that is coming from the city. Our desire is to continue to do our family business on that parcel. I do have 2 sons that have sworn that they're going to come help us run the family farm. So we would love to continue doing what we're doing in perpetuity. When I did meet the applicant, these particular developers, I was honestly blown away with not only their sensitivity to our lifestyle, but also they're being sympathetic to what we were asking for with creating buffers and making a good transition from the city, which is in Quail Brush. The city's right over there. We can see them and wave at them, but the Miller property is right next door. And so they've been very sensitive to all of our neighbors that live in the county outside the city limits, and have been very willing to work with their design to implement something that is not only consistent with the Quail Brush, but also sensitive to what we're doing over on our side. I would like to add that I do believe that my wife and I, the holding company that we have called Windwalker Ventures, LLC, which is we own the properties under that name. I do believe we are in ownership of that 30-foot strip that is directly on Wyoming Lane. So I'm not sure that's a new dispute that came up, but I do believe that all of that Wyoming Lane is owned by Windwalker Ventures. So we are in support of this because we feel that it is the highest and best use for that property, and we feel that they're doing a good thing for the city.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. And there was a Monica Thompson, I think is. Did you want to speak, ma'am?
She didn't want to speak. No.
Okay. I thought you said second. Okay. Decline. Thank you. Can we go to online and see if there's anybody online who wanted to speak in favor?
If there's anyone online that would like to speak in support of this item, please hit *6 to unmute yourselves. There's no one online.
Thank you. Please go to the opposition list.
We have 3 people registered to speak in opposition. The first one is Jack.
Hi, my name is Jack Casey. We live just east of the new projected development. We're a little concerned because we feel that they're trying to pack too many houses into that area. I think their study where they show the density of the area that we're in, I'd say probably about 70% of it there are bigger homes, larger homes, especially along that Sand Creek border that overlook the Sand Creek there. Those are very nice homes, very probably $800,000 homes, I would guess. And I would think any building in that area would probably propose a negative impact. I'm not saying that they can't build at all, because that's kind of unrealistic, but to keep it to a smaller density, or where they're bigger lots and so forth, I think that's extremely important. If they're looking at that 5.2, that's not so bad. To be zoned into an area where it's 16, possibly, I think that's a little crazy. We've seen some homes pop up north of us that basically look like trailer homes. And, when you walk along those trails and stuff, it's actually quite beautiful. I mean, it's not Garden of the Gods, but you got a nice view of Pikes Peak, and it's almost like a natural habitat. You got birds and butterflies and little animals running around in there, ducks and so forth. And so I am concerned about that. Another thing is the traffic. I would have to disagree with their study, and I wish I was an expert on it, but friends of our kids have gotten their cars totaled trying to pull out onto Dublin. All that traffic for our neighborhood empties out on Dublin. Everything from Mark Shuffle North, Banning Lewis area. That's probably the major exit is going down Dublin. Also, everybody's going to the elementary school and Vista Ridge High School. And if you try to get out of there during a school time, you're going to have to wait a while, because you got to wait till the light turns red. You're here, the light turns red. You got to wait for everybody to stop, and hopefully someone's nice enough to wave you so you could turn right. If you want to turn left, forget about it. You got a really good chance of getting taken out. So I think the traffic is super important. Maybe they're going to deal with that, but definitely lights or something like that have to be built or put in or something like that. And other than that, if I'm not totally against it, but it makes me very nervous, and I do feel like it's going to negatively impact the property values of the people that have spent a lot of money to have that beautiful view and so forth. And that's pretty much what I have to say. So thank you.
Sherry's up next. You would have 3 minutes, and introduce yourselves, please.
I'm Shari Casey, and I don't really have a lot to add to that, other than just the concern that it does not go any lower than that any higher than that 5.2 density. That's livable, not terrific, but going higher than that, just like with the traffic and everything, it just seems like it would be a negative.
Up next is Mike. Please introduce yourself, and you would have 3 minutes. Mike Mawire.
Okay, so Mr. McGuire's not here. Can we go to is there anybody else here in the audience to speak on this item? Sina, could we go online, please?
If there's anybody online that would like to speak in opposition of this item, please hit *6 to unmute yourself. There's no one online.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to rebut public comment?
Again, Noah Bramer for the record. We appreciate the comments, and that's in line with what we've heard at both the neighborhood meetings we've held, and really it was what triggered the change and the decrease in density. There is a line where we have to find a balance of feasibility for the project, and we feel that we found it in this roughly 5.2 DUs per acre. We feel that it fits in with the surrounding neighborhood, and further, to the concerns about the density getting up to the higher ends of what zoning would allow, which is up to 16 dwelling units per acre. I think that's going to be bottlenecked by what the local roads adjacent to the site can handle. To go denser, we would have to find some sort of relief valve for alternative connection to allow for that level of density, that number of units to be in the area. And as a part of this development, that's just not what we're going after. So we're going to stay in that 5.2 dwelling units per acre range. And then as far as the Sand Creek corridor goes, we wanted to maintain that as well. I think the point was made that some of those homes are high value homes, bigger lots. Our approach was to maintain a view corridor for this development's residents, and therefore we didn't add any homes on the south end of our site directly abutting the Sand Creek corridor other than 2 corner houses. We feel that preserves that corridor, preserves the habitat, the view shed, and gives as big of a buffer as we really can feasibly provide for residents on the other side of the creek. So. Else for me?
Oh, I think you should probably stay.
Okay.
I have a few questions, but I'm sure others do maybe as well.
Kick us off, Commissioner Hensler.
All right. So going back to the dwelling units per acre, can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I feel like in looking at the context, and I'll start off by saying as well, I've usually been a fan of annexations and of infilling enclaves. That's just my, opinion from the dais. But I am struggling a bit with this because of the adjacencies around. And so did you consider, or is there a feasibility of fewer units per acre and larger acreages, which could be a nice transition from what is existing at the 5.2 and then what's to the west, and then what's existing with the larger, whether they be commercial or residential county properties to the east and to the north? I know this is an economics decision for you guys too, but it just seems like they're that 5.2, and to the point of our citizens, right, is maybe the highest we would like to see, but is there an opportunity for a lower density?
Yeah, I think to your point about that is an economic decision, and I am a civil engineer, but I'll put on my hat for it as best as I can. We did explore it, and I think this is a line that we found that made the project feasible, and the applicant could probably speak to this a bit better, the developer, but I'd say we found ourselves in as low of a density as possible for this development to work. There's a lot of factors to weigh in there between neighbors' input and making the project economically viable, and that's we've spent a long time trying to figure out what that line is, and so the solution proposed is that we have an external ring of homes that are very similar in size, in fact, a little bit bigger than the adjacent homes to the west. But the truth of it is there's a lot of environmental impacts on the site between the wetlands to the north and Sand Creek to the south that make it so there's not as much developable area where we can spread it out and have some bigger homes. So that's where that internal corridor of attached single-family homes came from.
Sure. And I can get that from an economic and planning standpoint. I would say it looked a little uninspired, and it seemed like maybe a little bit more diversity of larger homes and smaller could maybe bring the dwelling units down. But I'm not here to design your project. But I certainly had some questions, and I think the neighbors' points are taken, because it does seem like there's a lot of internal roads, to Todd's comments earlier, internal local streets to get back to this. So can you tell me as well, did you guys consider bridging over Sand Creek from Durango Kid Drive? And is there any access from the south that would be available? It looks like there is a, kind of a stub out there, which I realize bridges are expensive, but again, I'm just concerned about, some of the things that we're hearing and want your opinion.
Yeah, yeah. You're right. Bridges are very expensive, but we did look into it in quite a bit of detail. Got some pricing for it. The issue, the bottleneck that we ran into was that there wasn't sufficient space for a 50-foot wide public right of way to sneak through there. And it's a mix of uses, and feels that we felt that it, for the price, and the way we were constrained spatially, there was just no viable way of making that work.
Okay, fair enough. Final question for me. I promise I'll pass the mic. We heard from Mr. Britton, which I think was really helpful, and it's great to hear when those relationships and conversations go well. But there's obviously a few other neighbors along the way. Have you had favorable interactions there, and how do you see that impacting the development?
Yeah, I think the neighborhood meetings that we've held have had a really positive impact on this development, and hopefully on the neighbors' outlook of the project. Kirby's point was that this developer came in with a genuine care for the neighbors and didn't want to propose something that was completely out of line with what they wanted. And so we've had really positive conversations. A lot of them come through in copy paste emails for input, and
Right.
we address those as best as we could through substantial outreach with them, responses and multiple meetings to make sure they were heard, and we made changes accordingly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, sorry. Sure. I've got two. Hopefully they're quick. First one is, in order to potentially better suit Mr. and Mrs. Casey's comments about density, but also accommodate the density that you all have described, just over 5 dwelling units per acre. Did you consider our flex low? And if not, why not? If that was considered, why was it decided against?
Yeah. So we did consider our flex low. And I think regardless of what the zoning is, this density is what worked. It gets into the economics of the purchase and sale, because the zoning designation doesn't change the sale price of the property. So this is the density that worked for that. As far as I understand, that if we got into our flex low, we would have been over the threshold, I believe. No?
No, it's, is that?
It's 5 to 6 dwelling units per acre.
Oh, okay. So we were in our flex medium because, as I mentioned, we had another 30 plus units that pushed us over that threshold. And it was just over the past few months that we came down in that total number of dwelling units to be in that very low end of the 5 to 16. So there are no plans for us to increase it. And as I mentioned, I don't think the local infrastructure, roadway infrastructure, can support a higher density. So it was looked at early, but based on the timing of when that density was reduced, we didn't switch to a new zoning designation at that point.
Okay, and I was wondering if you could respond to, I read in the public comments that Mark Sheffel was under construction at the time of the traffic study and had caused a lot of detours. Whether or not that may have impacted the accuracy of the traffic study.
I'll have our traffic engineer answer that second question.
Good morning, planning commissioners. I'm Curtis Rowe with Kimley Horn Associates, traffic engineer, prepared the traffic study for this project. We actually did multiple iterations of counts over the last couple of years. The most recent were the ones that were conducted in April of 2025. And so that was while school was in session prior to the construction of Dublin. We evaluate historical counts in addition to those counts that are done. And so those are representative of the volumes that we expect once all the construction is complete. So we make those adjustments, yes.
Over to Commissioner Casey.
Back to our applicant. Again, my question had to do with RFlex low too, so I appreciate Commissioner Cecil bringing that up. One of the major differences between low and high is also the height. You said you're committed to 2 stories because the RFlex medium is 45 feet versus 30 feet. So can you talk to that?
Yeah, so the density was a range that we worked through, and as I mentioned, it came down near the end of our application process. The building height, with what we're currently showing and all of the communications with potential builders, is in line with a 2-story single-family home, very similar to what we're seeing to the west. In fact, we've proposed lots that are 1,000 square feet larger than those homes, and we're trying to spread our density so that on their shared property line to the east of the existing development, they look back and they see a comparable home to what we have proposed. As far as the difference between RFlex low and RFlex medium, I understand the concern, and it's just not something we look to change late in the game. We felt that what we're providing was a good balance of based on all the conversations, all the neighborhood impact we were at, and we're happy with where the balance is, and don't see it going any higher. Don't see 2 stories being exceeded.
So my concern is if the annexation is approved, the zoning is approved, and subsequent to that, you decide not to go forward with this project, and somebody else, you sell the land to somebody else, they would, they basically inherit a land, our flex medium, they could increase the density, they wouldn't be bound by your land use plan. So I guess my question for you is, how committed are you to this project, and when do you anticipate the building starting? What's the timeline for start and end of construction?
Yeah. Jim, anything to add to that?
I'll give Noah a little break here. My name's Jim Houck. I'm also with Kimley Horn, land planning side of the planning exercise. Couple of questions I think I got out of there was timing, right?
Right, timing
Yeah.
and commitment to doing this and not, dispensing with it and selling the land
Yeah.
after it's rezoned.
I think one of the exercises that we've gone through with this project too is we really stepped ahead of ourselves a bit in the development plan process, really just to test everything out. I mean, there was a lot of edges to this property in a sense, to the creek, the drainages, access, and all that. So our exercise was to step forward a little bit, test drive it with city staff before we made any final decisions. And I think what we're doing is we're baking all of those decisions and that density into our annexation agreement. That's our goal. So we're confirming that we want to work at this density. As Noah mentioned, and part of the exercise too was how do we make those transitions? And again, our neighbors are at 5,000 square foot lots. We bumped ours up to 6,000 square foot lot to give ourselves a little more elbow room in there. As far as timing goes, I think the goal here is within a year we've got the horizontal work done, and within 2 years we're selling houses. So that's pretty broad in a sense, but again, I'm not the real estate guy. I'm just the planner.
Great, thank you.
But any other questions or?
I think Ms. Baxter, tomorrow, yeah. There's a lot of concern of density, dwelling units. Where, within which application would it be the annexation plan? Where would the density be codified as a part of this potential annexation land use statement? Where would those go be associated with this annexation? The density and the height limitations.
So for the record, Tamara Baxter, planning supervisor. So to answer your question, so if you look on the land use plan for density, it is limited to the 5.2 dwelling units per acre. And it's also will be identified, if I'm not mistaken, identified on the ordinance for the zone establishment as well. Oh, no, actually, I'm sorry, we're not doing PDZ. I had to rethink. So it is part of the land use plan, and it is identified as 5.2 on the dwelling units per acre.
I do see the land use plan. The maximum building height is set at 45.
So the building height, so
With-
that is going to be tied with that specific zone district. So it's a
Correct.
straight zone. So with let me step back on this. So they originally came forward with a density of, I think it was 6.3 dwelling units per acre. And during the review of this project, with the review of the traffic impact study, they did reduce the density to 5.2 dwelling units per acre. We did not look at changing the proposed zoning from our flex medium to our low. But they will be limited to the 5.2 dwelling units per acre because it's identified on the land use plan. If they do want to change that, they will be back in front of you with any kind of increases to that density.
Understood. And then the maximum building height is currently associated with the zone.
It is.
So there could be potentially a condition of record placed by this body on the land use plan to not exceed a different height density if that was deemed appropriate. And would the applicant be opposed to that? Would that be detrimental to the current plans?
Noel Bramer for the record. I do think that we would be open to that. It doesn't change. There's no secret plan to come in at 45 feet after. So, the 2-story product is what we're looking for. So if that makes this more acceptable, then we'd certainly be open to that.
I mean, it sounds like from opinions on the dais that is a concern. It's not our purview to tell you what zone to rezone into. I mean, we could postpone. I would imagine that would be probably more of a nuisance.
My
to
question,
the
I guess,
process here.
because I agree with all of this conversation. And so what's the easier mechanism? Is it just adjusting to our flex low, or is it putting different conditions and constraints within the land use plan? I don't know what's easier from a administrative process, but I think we're trying to get to the same place. So what's the most direct route to say, we want you to stay at the lowest dwelling units and the lowest height?
Well, I currently with the applications today, we could put a condition of record on height.
Right.
We already have the dwelling units established. We cannot approve an application for an RFlex low because that's not before us today. We could disapprove or postpone
Right.
and see another application at another time. But if those are the criteria with which compatibility has been a concern, that is the mechanism to get to a vote today on something.
Yeah.
Correct me if
Yeah, I
I'm
just don't
wrong
know
tomorrow.
If Tamara had comments on how, yeah.
Tamara Baxter, Planning Supervisor, for the record. To answer your question, I don't think there's really, maybe the city attorney's office may have a suggestion, but I don't think there's really a clear either or works. I mean, you could do the RFlex low, recommend that, or do a condition of approval that limits the height to 35 feet.
Sure. I suppose since, we would be voting to recommend to city council and then they could, I guess, choose between then and now to have a different zone.
Correct.
So I don't know if our esteemed attorney and the backer side has an opinion on that, but just hearing voices on the dais today.
Good morning, Caitlin Molnar, City Attorney's Office. What you said earlier, Chair Slattery, was correct. The zone that's in front of you is not the RFlex low. I might have said the wrong one, sorry. So you're considering the zone that's in front of you, so you need to approve or deny the zone in front of you.
Thank you. Any questions, comments more from the dais? Commissioner Cecil?
Also for Ms. Baxter, I just wanted to confirm that a land use plan definitely would come back through Planning Commission to change the density. It would not just go through a managerial or administrative review?
There's a provision in the UDC that if a decision is made by a board, such as yourselves or council, it does go back through, any changes to that will go back through that process, that similar process. So if they come back with a request to modify the density, we will require them to come before you to make that change.
Thank you. Is that, is there a 15%, I guess, administrative leeway within that density restriction? Sometimes we see that on height or limitations. Is there a 15%?
Not for density.
Okay.
Because that's going to be established with the land use plan and the zone.
Understood.
Yeah.
Good question. Any other questions, comments?
Yes, please.
Commissioner Rickett.
This may be very bizarre coming from me, but I live in a active construction community that has density from 3.5 dwelling units per acre up to 25 dwelling units per acre. The diversity actually is a positive, not a negative. And we knew that we'd have this diversity in our neighborhood before we moved into it. I get those that live outside, you know, that this property didn't exist when you bought your houses. I understand that. And I think they've handled that well in the land use plan, noting that the gross density is 5.2 dwelling units per acre. So I think that's fairly clear. I also understand from the dais, from the zoning standpoint, once it's zoned, if they sell the property, that zoning still exists on the property. The land use plan does limit it. So there's a little conflict there that we can deal with. Me personally, I'm quite good with all three: annexation, land use plan, and the zoning. Because I see a positive all the way around, quite honestly. But I understand the residents and